Hi everyone, welcome back to the series of videos on Ind AS, that is Ind AS with Accountsman. In the last two videos we were discussing Ind AS 21 and this will be the last part of our video on Ind AS 21. So in the last video we had done forex transactions, that is the first part of our Ind AS 21. So in this transaction we will do the last part whatever is remaining with regard to Ind AS 21, that is foreign operations. So right now we are into discussion of the foreign operations, that is part 2 in the standard but part 3 of our video. So let's get started with foreign operations. Foreign operations. Now the entire question is about what exactly do we mean by foreign operations. Now assume that I am an entity, I'll write it in blue. Okay, assume that I have an entity and this entity I'm going to call it parent entity because I have kids and my kids are subsidiary, joint venture or associate. Yeah, so when I have a subsidiary, joint venture or associate, I am called the parent entity and these are called my subsidiary, associate or joint venture. Now if any of these subsidiary, joint venture or associate or foreign operations, that is what we are trying to cover in this specific part of the standard. What do you mean by foreign operations? Meaning the functional currency of my parent entity and functional currency of my subsidiary, joint venture or associate are different. So it is not specifically like the holding and the subsidiary are in two different countries. They can still be in the same country but they might have a different functional currency. Now how is this possible? Let me explain this to you. Now the question that I am trying to answer here is, should the parent and the subsidiary have same functional currency or can they have different functional currency? I'll repeat, should the functional currency of parent and entity be same? The answer is yes or no. That's the question. So the answer is pretty simple. It is yes and no. So we need to see with regard to parent entity and we need to see subsidiary, joint venture and associate here. And what is the question here is whether it is integrated operations or not. So the question is integrated operation. Yes, integrated operation. Integrated operations. Non-integrated operations. Yeah. What if the parent and subsidiary have integrated operations? Meaning when we say integrated operations, what we mean is, okay, parents extended operations is subsidiary. Here not extended operations. It is almost like a separate operations only. You get that? So that is the difference. Now before I tell you how exactly do we deal with this, I will tell you what do you mean by integrated operations, what do you mean by non-integrated operations. Whenever the parent has control and the management of the subsidiary, joint venture or associate, and whenever the basic the control with respect to the raw materials that they are going to purchase or how they are going to do the production process, to whom are they going to render the services or sell the goods, what is the price at which those goods are supposed to be sold, or how do they collect the money, or who bears the expense. So if it is like a very small baby, completely controlled with regard to every small management decision by the parent, that becomes integrated operations. Whereas if it is given certain powers to deal with its own, then it will become non-integrated, something like a dependent branch, dependent branch, non-dependent branch, similar topics that we read in our branch accounting part. So that becomes this. If it is a subsidiary is an integrated operations, then what will happen? I'll tell you. Functional currency of parent and subsidiary, joint venture and associate, it will be same. You get that? Functional currency of the parent, subsidiary, associate, joint venture, everything will be same. What if the the entities are basically non-integrated. Then functional currency of parent and functional currency of subsidiary, joint venture and associate will not be same. Then what do we do? Among the group, the functional currency has to be specifically identified for each entity. You get that? I'll help you write this down. If subsidiary, associate and joint venture are integral operations, then what will happen? Functional currency of parent is equal to functional currency of foreign operation. Foreign operation will write as FO. However, the next part is if subsidiary, associate and joint venture are non-integral, then what will happen? The functional currency of parent and foreign operation are not same. Then what should we be doing? Functional currency of each foreign operation has to be determined separately. Have to determine separately as to what is the functional currency for each of the foreign operation that you have, each subsidiary, each associate and each joint venture. And then what we need to do? Convert those foreign operations in foreign currency to my functional currency. So the entire standard discussion what we are going to do now is foreign operations in foreign currency with regard to my foreign operations, which are basically recorded in foreign currency, translation to functional currency. Now, why am I going to do this entire process of translation? Because we have to do consolidation. You get that? Consolidation of subsidiaries records into holdings record, consolidation of joint venture or associates records into its investment party. So when we are doing this consolidation, we have to do conversion. Conversion from where to where? Conversion from foreign currency to the functional currency. Functional currency of whom? Functional currency of parent. You get that? This foreign currency to parent. When we say foreign currency to parent, what is this? This is, okay, I'll write it in a different color. This is, what is it? This is my functional currency to foreign operation. To foreign operation it is functional currency, but to parent it is foreign currency. So we need to convert that foreign currency to parent's functional currency. That is what we're going to do in this specific standards part. In this process, the first and foremost discussion is with respect to net investment. Now the question is, what do we mean when we refer to this word net investment? Net investment is, okay, interest in foreign operations assets held by, okay, I'll write held a little below, held by parent. Now assume that I have a subsidiary. The subsidiary's assets belong to me to an extent. So what proportion do I hold interest in the assets of my subsidiary? That is something by net. That is something that we call by the word net investment. So with regard to this net investment, if there are any non-monetary items, what do you mean by non-monetary items? Non-monetary items can be assets or liabilities, that is receivable or payable, and with respect to these receivables or payable, we are not really sure. It is neither planned nor expected. Neither do we have a plan nor do we have an expectation to settle in foreseeable future. Now I have a subsidiary. From that subsidiary I am supposed to receive some money, and this is not monetary item, it's a non-monetary item, and it's long term. Okay, I'll write here long term. Yeah, there is a long term non-monetary item, and neither have I told my subsidiary that you need to pay me after a certain date, nor am I expecting my subsidiary to pay. So it's a long term non-monetary item, neither expected nor planned to be settled in the foreseeable future. With respect to this, if there is any exchange difference, because we need to translate, isn't it? If there is any exchange difference, this exchange difference in the consolidated financial statements or in the financial statements of that parent company, it will basically go to OCI. Where will it go? In the books of parent, it will go to OCI, other comprehensive income. It will not go to P&L, and it will be transferred to P&L only when disposal is made with respect to foreign options. So OCI till disposal of foreign operations, because it is something that is not realized, it is something which is unrealized, and it is something that is not going to happen in the foreseeable future. So I won't recognize it as income in P&L account. I will keep it in OCI, and it will remain there till the time I sell my entire investment in my subsidiary, or till the time I merge my subsidiary into me, I completely acquire it, or I liquidate my subsidiary. Till then that will remain in OCI and it will not go to PL. When my foreign operation will become integral, when I say I acquire it, I include it in my books of accounts, or I will give up the entire investment in foreign operations, then it will go to my PL, because then it will become actual. That will go after changes. Now this is in the books of parent. Now what about in the books of foreign operations? Whenever I am referring to foreign operations, I am basically referring to subsidiary, associate or joint venture. With respect to this, what will happen? P&L. It will go to P&L account immediately. So we're going to do immediate recognition with respect to this. So I'll repeat, with regard to net investment, that is interest in the foreign operations assets held by the parent. If it is long term non-monetary item, that is asset or liability which is leading to receivable or payable, it is neither planned nor expected to be settled in the foreseeable future. Such exchange difference in the parent or in the consolidated financial statements will remain in OCI till the time such foreign operations is disposed. However, in the subsidiary or in the associate or in the joint venture, that is in the books of foreign operations, it will be immediately recognized in their financial statements. So now we'll go ahead and then discuss as to how exactly do we prepare consolidated financial statements with respect to foreign operations. Preparation of consolidated financial statements is not cash flow statement, in relation to foreign operations. How do we prepare this consolidated financial statements? Shall we start the discussion? Now, whenever we do this, we need to convert the assets, liabilities, expenses and incomes of my foreign operation, which are recorded in the foreign currency, to the functional currency of my parent company. So what am I going to do? We'll have assets and liabilities, we'll have expenses and incomes. So what will I do with respect to these items which are in foreign currency will be converted to functional currency of parent. When I say foreign currency, this is actually functional currency to foreign operation. You get that? And it is foreign currency to parent. You get that? So to me dollars is a foreign currency. To them, dollars is a functional currency. That's how it is. So how do we do it? With respect to asset and liability, we need to check whether they are monetary or they are non-monetary. You get that? If they are monetary, with respect to monetary items, will always follow closing rate. However, when we come to non-monetary items, there we need to see whether the items are recorded at historical cost or fair value. If the items are basically recorded at historical cost, then we go for the transaction date. the rate prevailing on the transaction date. That is the, what to say, that spot rate. If you go to fair value, or basically those assets are basically recognized at fair value, or liabilities are recognized at fair value, Ind AS 113, fair value measurement. Then what do we do? Date, okay, transaction rate on date of fair value. Okay, transaction, ouch, exchange rate on the date of fair value. Rate on fair value measurement. On the date when I follow fair value measurement, whatever is the exchange rate prevailing, that rate has to be taken. And with respect to my expenses and incomes are spread throughout the year. I need to actually go by transaction rate. That's highly impossible, because we'll have thousands of transactions, each of them falling on different dates. So you cannot do them individually. So what we do is we basically go by average rate, average for the entire period. When we do this entire conversion, we basically convert the trial balance of my foreign operation into my trial balance in the functional currency. Later that will be merged to find the consolidated financial statements in the functional currency of the parent. So this is how we're going to do. So in the process of this preparation, there will be certain translation difference that will arise. So now we'll understand the exchange difference. Whenever I do this, there will be exchange difference that will be generated. What will I do with this exchange difference? Am I going to transfer this to my other comprehensive income, or am I going to transfer this to my P&L account? Before I answer that, I need to understand, I need to make you understand here, this entire exchange difference is not completely mine, because this exchange difference is on conversion of the entire foreign operations. If I hold 100% of my foreign operation, then well and good. If I don't hold 100% of my foreign operation, if I hold some 70% and 30% is held by someone else, minority or non-controlling interest, so part of the exchange difference belongs to them as well. So I need to segregate this exchange difference into two components. One is controlling interest, next one is non-controlling interest. If you would have read consolidation, you might have understood this. When I say non-controlling interest, I am basically referring to minority interest. Now I would be writing minority interest share in the equity, minority interest share in the other equity, pre and post both. I would be adding them to write it in my balance sheet. Along with that, I would have to adjust this exchange difference also. However, if it is controlling interest, with regard to controlling interest, this exchange difference will be kept in other comprehensive income. Where will it be kept? Other comprehensive income, till the time foreign operations are disposed. Yeah, till the time I either acquire my foreign operations completely or I dispose my entire investments in my foreign operations, I will keep it in OCI only. When I either acquire or completely dispose my foreign operations, I will transfer that part to my P&L. Till then, that exchange difference arising on translation of foreign operations to functional currency, that exchange difference will remain in my OCI only, and on disposal or on acquisition, complete acquisition, it will be transferred to my P&L. Till then, it will completely remain in my OCI exclusively. And this is only the controlling interest share in that exchange difference. Non-controlling interest share will be adjusted against this non-controlling interest, equity, other equity, and translation exchange difference, that is add or minus, gain or loss, either of it will be done. So this is the basic part. Now there are certain important aspects that will arise in the process of our consolidation. So the first one is with regard to our intercompany owings. Yeah, whenever there is intercompany owings, what do we do? That is, maybe what do you say, debtor creditor relationship, or what do you have, bills receivable, bills payable, or if we have debentures in one, investment in other, or anything of this sort, we basically, what is it, nullify this intercompany owings. Am I right? Okay, so I'll tell you, intercompany transactions will be nullified. Yeah, the impact will be nullified. Where? In CFS. In CFS, I am talking about in consolidated financial statements. However, exchange difference on this very important point should not be nullified. Now assume the parent company is a debtor and the subsidiary is a creditor. So with regard to this, we basically scratch off the debtor from the asset side, scratch off that creditor from the liability side in our consolidated financial statements. But with respect to that subsidiary foreign operations part, when we convert it into functional currency, the exchange difference might arise. Such exchange difference should not be written off. Why? It is true. Such risk exists because such forex risk exists, and this particular exchange difference should still be recorded in our consolidated financial statements. And if this exchange difference is with respect to non-monetary item, which is long-term asset or liability, receivable or payable, not expected or planned to be settled in the foreseeable future, then it will go to our OCI till the time that foreign operations is disposed. That's an important point to be remembered. And the next thing that I'm going to discuss with respect to this is, see, I am telling you, I'm talking about foreign operations. So the closing date is different for parent and foreign operations. Is that possible? Now in India we close our financial statements on 31st of March. Now assume that the parent is in Australia, or assume that the foreign operation is in Australia, where they follow June to July a financial year, or in a different country where there is a different financial year altogether. Then what would happen? The financial statements are closed by the foreign operation on a separate date. The financial statements are closed by the parent on a separate date. So how do we consolidate? The first rule that we usually keep for consolidation is that the date should coincide, isn't it? So if the dates are mismatching, what do we do? Then we need to check, okay, time gap. Yeah, time gap. What is this time gap? Time gap between the closing of the financial year of parent and closing of the financial year of foreign operations. We need to check whether this time gap is less than, or what do you say, less than 3 months, or it is greater than 3 months. It is less than or equal to 3 months. So assume that foreign operations are ending on 31st of March, and our foreign operations is basically ending on 31st of December. I'll repeat, my parent is closing the books of accounts on 31st of March and foreign operations are closed on 31st of December. So there is 3 months gap. If it is more than 3 months, how do we deal it? If it is less than 3 months, how do we deal it? If it is less than 3 months, then no problem. No problem. Consolidate. But however, we need to adjust for significant items. Adjust for significant items and exchange difference. Yeah, we need to account for such significant items that have changed and exchange difference that has changed, and then we just go ahead with it and then do it. However, if that, what do you say, the time gap between is greater than 3 months, then what we need to do? Then we need to update foreign operations to, what do you say, match closing date with parent, and then we need to do with consolidation. I'll repeat, whenever the closing dates are differing for the parent as well as the foreign operation, we need to check how long is the time gap. If the time gap is prominent, that is greater than 3 months, then we cannot do consolidation right now. We need to update the foreign operations financial statements or operations to come up till the closing date of our foreign operations, parent, and then convert it, and then we basically go ahead with our consolidation. However, if the time gap is lesser than 3 months, then we do consolidation after giving after accounting for significant items that have changed, and after also changing the accounting for the exchange difference that has happened over this period. Yes, next let's start with the discussion with regard to disposal of foreign operation. Assume I have a subsidiary, associate or joint venture, and I'm disposing that foreign operation, meaning I'm decreasing my investment completely or decreasing my investment to an extent in that subsidiary, associate or joint venture. Now this has to be understood in two parts. One, what to say, change in control. I can write it as controlling interest retained or controlling interest given up. Now the question is, what do you mean by controlling interest retained and controlling interest given up? Now assume that there is a company in which I hold 60% of the shares. So when I hold 60% of the shares, that is my control, that is my subsidiary. Now if I sell certain investments, assume that I sell 5%. So then what will happen? It will become 55%. Still it is my subsidiary and I still have control on it. So controlling interest is retained. However, if I sell 15%, then it will become 45%. Assuming that I don't have any other control on the company other than equity, it is no more my subsidiary because I don't hold 15% shares in it. I hold only 45%. I hold lesser than 50. So it is no more in my control. So if you lose the control on that company, how do we account it? And if we don't lose the control of that company, how do we account it? That is the point of discussion. So if we still have the control, it is called as controlling interest retained. If we don't have the control anymore, it is called as controlling interest given up. So whenever we still have the control, then what will happen? Such exchange difference that will arise. Yeah. Exchange difference that will arise previously was segregated between non-controlling interest and controlling interest. Now assume that previously it was 60-40. So 60% of exchange difference I took it to controlling interest, 40% I gave it to non-controlling interest. But what would happen now? Now it would change, no? Now assume that it becomes 55 and 45. So I need to transfer. So what I do in this particular case is transfer from controlling interest to non-controlling interest. So that's what I will do. When I talk about controlling interest, with regard to controlling interest, it will be in other comprehensive income. So from my other comprehensive income, which is there on the equity and liabilities, from there it will go to my non-controlling interest, which is there on the equity and liability side of my balance sheet. So it will just change the heading. It will go from OCI to NCI. However, if the controlling interest is given up, then what will I do? What will be the treatment of exchange difference? Yeah, I have given up the control. Then what will happen? Then there is no point of discussion about controlling and non-controlling interest now. Why? Because there is nothing called as controlling interest because I don't hold the control on it anymore. So previously this exchange difference would have been in my OCI. OCI should be derecognized. What do you mean derecognized? Transfer to PL. I had told previously only. Lot of times when we discussed previously, I told you every time saying that exchange difference will be in OCI till the time foreign operations is disposed. Yeah, whenever it is disposed, then what will happen? It will basically go to my P&L. That's what I've been telling. Now it is disposed. So from OCI it will go to P&L. Then what will I do? That non-controlling interest what is there? No, that should also be recognized. Should be derecognized. That non-controlling interest whatever is there, in that also exchange difference will no more arise because it is, see, when I control, non-controlling interest will become my liability. I don't control it. So that non-controlling interest what is there on my equity liability side should also be derecognized. So that exchange difference which is a component of that non-controlling interest should also be derecognized, and that is what we'll do when the controlling interest is given up. So I'll repeat it to you. Whenever there is disposal, we need to check whether the control is retained or control is given up. If the control is retained, some portion of it, to the extent the control is given up, it will be that exchange difference will be transferred, that percentage of it will be transferred from my other comprehensive income to non-controlling interest. However, if the control is completely given up, the entire OCI, that exchange difference whatever is there, will be derecognized by transfer to PL, and the entire exchange difference which was previously included in NCI will also be derecognized now by transferring to P&L because the control does not exist and the foreign operation is completely disposed. And the last part of our discussion, what we did till now is in the foreign operations, we converted from the foreign currency to the functional currency of the parent currency. But if I take you back to the first day's discussion on our Ind AS 21, I told you there is something called as presentation currency. Now what exactly do you mean by presentation currency? Presentation currency refers to the currency in which the financial statements are prepared. Now the foreign operations are basically there in foreign currency. From foreign currency I converted it to functional currency. Why? Functional currency can be our presentation currency. Now assume that I am an Indian based company with functional currency being Indian rupees, and my Indian company has a foreign operation in US, and whatever that recordings were basically made in dollars, I have converted it completely to Indian rupees, that is functional currency, and when I recorded the entire statements in my functional currency. But What if I am a company, that Indian company with Indian functional currency is recorded in what is say British Stock Exchange or some London Stock Exchange? Then what should I do? I am basically supposed to prepare my financial statements to be given to the London Stock Exchange. I cannot give it in rupees, isn't it? So I would have to prepare it in terms of the foreign currency that is there in that London or England as a country. So what should I be doing? I should follow presentation currency. So the entire discussion that I am going to do now is, what if functional currency is not the same as presentation currency? Because my company is listed in a foreign stock exchange which is not the country in which my foreign operations are there, then what would I have to do? I would have to still prepare my financial statements in that presentation currency of that country to report it to that stock exchange. So what will I do in that specific case? I again will go back to translation, assets and liabilities, expense and incomes. With respect to my assets and liabilities, monetary items, non-monetary items. If it is monetary items, what rate will I use? I will use closing rate and then translate them. If it is non-monetary items, what will I do? I will check. What will I check? Historical cost or fair value. If those transactions are basically following historical cost, then at what to say that historical cost rate or that spot rate as on the date on which that asset is specifically purchased. If it is fair value, then fair value adoption date rate, the rate of forex as on the date on which fair value measurement is adopted and that date's rate. And when you go to expenses and incomes, I will go by average rate. You might ask one important point here. This is very important. A lot of questions are there on this. What if there is goodwill that's arising? If there is any goodwill that is arising on consolidation, again for that we'll apply closing rate. Yeah, that is something that you need to remember. This is what we do in order to translate the financial statements from functional currency to presentation currency. And in order, when we do this, in the order of doing this, what if there is exchange difference arising? If the exchange difference arises, this exchange difference should be categorized into two parts. One is the part which will belong to controlling interest, the other part which belongs to non-controlling interest. Whatever the portion of this exchange difference in the percentage of holding which belongs to non-controlling interest should be added to equity and other equity which belongs to non-controlling interest and will be presented in equity and liability side in our balance sheet. Whatever portion which belongs to controlling interest will be kept in other comprehensive income till the time foreign operations are disposed. Till the time my foreign operations are disposed, it will remain in OCI. The day I give up my entire investment or give up my control over the foreign operations, or the day I include that foreign operations into my, acquire those foreign operations into my, my business, on that day I will remove it and then transfer to P&L. Till then it should be recognized only in OCI and it will not be transferred to P&L. So this is the point. However, before I close this entire sentence, one last important point. I told you that we need to apply closing rate, the transaction date rate of historical cost, transaction date as on which fair value measurement is adopted, or average rate. There is an exception to this. Yeah, the exception is if foreign operation is in hyper inflationary economy or inflationary environment. What do we do? Yeah, if foreign operation, that foreign operation whatever I have, or my functional currency whatever is there, my parent company is basically in hyperinflationary economy. Foreign operation, or parent is basically there in hyperinflationary economy. Then what do? We cannot apply that closing rate for some, average rate for some and everything. So in that case, exchange rate to be followed. Exchange rate to be followed will be always closing rate. When will we always follow? That is for asset and liability, monetary or non-monetary. For expense and income, for everything, what rate do we follow? We only follow closing rate. whether it is conversion from functional currency to presentation currency or foreign currency to functional currency, we will follow which one? Only closing rate. When is this? When that foreign operation or parent is in hyperinflationary environment. The environment or the currency which you are translating, that currency is in hyperinflationary environment, then we basically go with this. Hyperinflationary environment or hyperinflationary accounting will basically discuss in Ind AS 29. But if I would have to tell you what exactly do you mean by hyperinflationary environment, it is an environment in which the general public prefer to keep the items in non-monetary items, or they keep it in a stable foreign currency, or they prefer measuring the monetary items in their country in the stable foreign currency, or the sales price, the interest or payments are basically determined by the price index of the country, or basically what exactly is the purchase price of each product is basically determined by the purchasing power that is there in that particular economy. Or in the last 3 years, if the inflation of the country sums up to 100% or above that, then what do? We call that economy as hyperinflationary environment. I'll repeat to you, if the general public prefer to keep non-monetary investments in foreign stable currency, or the selling price or the interest, anything is determined based on the price index of the country, or monetary items. Okay, I'll write it for you. What we do is monetary items measured in stable foreign currency. If there are non-monetary items, okay, entire people prefer investing it in non-monetary items or stable foreign currency. They don't keep the assets in monetary items. Now assume that I belong to Zimbabwe and I have a lot of my earnings in Zimbabwean dollar. Zimbabwe has high inflation, so I will not keep my money in Zimbabwean dollars. I'll either convert it to gold and keep, because it's a non-monetary investment, or I'll keep it in the foreign currency. I'll keep it in dollars. You get that? So that's the case. Or what do you say? Interest prices is determined by what? Price index. Yeah. Then purchase price is determined by purchasing power. Or we can say inflation in last 3 years is greater than or equal to 100%. You get that? So if this is the state, okay, state of economy, if this is the state of the economy of a country, then that country is supposed to be in an hyperinflationary environment. If we are converting any foreign operation or parent company which is there in hyperinflationary economy to some other currency or presentation currency or to functional currency, then in order to conversion, we will not apply average rate or date of transaction rate or anything. We'll always go by closing rate. This is however given in our Ind AS 29, which is right now not part of our CA final syllabus, but it is good to know to the extent it's applicable in other standards. So this is the detailed discussion with regard to our Ind AS 21. It was a long one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you understood it as much as I enjoyed and liked doing it. So we're done with foreign operations in our part 3 of this video. So by this I can put a tick mark next to this foreign operations, and we're done with the entire standard, that is Ind AS 21. So see you all in the next video with a different standard. Till then, stay in the game.